If I'd been diagnosed with Lyme disease more quickly than, say, 5 years that it took me to be diagnosed, I would have needed a very short course of antibiotics and would have almost certainly recovered 100%.
That's British Columbia teen Nicole Bottles. It took, as she said, 5 years before she was properly diagnosed with Lyme disease, and she believes she would still be walking if she hadn't been misdiagnosed originally. Her health is slowly improving now, but she is still suffering from the debilitating disease that is tough to detect and treat. Now, Green Party leader Elizabeth May is pushing a private member's bill for better prevention and research, and Nicole Bottles is helping raise awareness about her disease. What investments are needed for earlier diagnosis, and why should the federal government have a national strategy around Lyme disease? Joining me now, Green Party leader Elizabeth May, and beside her is Nicole Bottles, and she suffers from Lyme disease. Good to see you both, ladies. Appreciate you being here. Nicole, I'm going to start with you because you have some of the answers to the questions I want. It took doctors 5 years to diagnose you with Lyme disease, if I'm not mistaken. What is it like to live with the disease? Just give us a sense of it.
Well, every day I'm in chronic pain. That spreads all over my body. I have pretty frequent headaches and nausea and joint pain, and just I'm so exhausted all the time, and you wouldn't know to look at me that I have so many health problems, which is a challenge. I'm obviously in a wheelchair, which affects my literal perspective quite a bit, and it makes life incredibly challenging. I was so active before.
Yeah. And that's part of the problem with Lyme disease, right? Like, I look at you and you look like $1 million, but
yes.
You've got all these issues.
Yes, it was originally frustrating because I would present with these sort of vague symptoms, fatigue, nausea, headaches, joint pain, and that didn't initially clue in doctors that I was suffering from a bacterial infection. I was tested for everything, and then they still don't believe I have Lyme disease in Canada, which is very frustrating.
So why don't they believe in Canada?
It's a very complex issue, but essentially the testing in Canada is two-tiered, and the first test, which is called the ELISA test, is very inaccurate. And so you get tested with the ELISA test, and your test can have a false positive or a false negative. And like many people, I've had a false negative test. And doctors here assume that means you don't have Lyme disease, even though the medical literature states you're supposed to diagnose Lyme disease clinically, which means based on your symptoms. Yes. So there's a lot of focus on the testing when the focus should be moved onto what is actually happening symptomatically with the patient. Okay. And there's more accurate testing available in the States. I realize this issue is so broad, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that this is the controversy, but there's more accurate testing available in the States that looks at more species of Borrelia, which is the infection that causes Lyme. It looks at, it's a different kind of testing, too, much more accurate, which is not accepted in Canada.
Okay, so let me bring in Elizabeth May, who's been championing the cause on Parliament Hill. How common is this kind of story?
Very common. I'm hearing constantly from, and this is why my bill for a national Lyme disease approach has the support of all parties, is because so many members of Parliament have been hearing from, these stories that are heartbreaking from people, from Canadians who are having to go to the U.S. for treatment, and from doctors. There are a lot of championing doctors on this issue who've experienced the difficulties of getting an accurate test. They can clinically diagnose Lyme, and then they find it's difficult to find, to have the right to treat the patients that they've decided clinically do have Lyme if there's been a test that's inaccurate. So I'm really gratified that the Canadian Medical Association, has supported the bill so strongly and saying, look, there is a clear difficulty in diagnosing Lyme. So you have situations where so many Canadians very commonly end up having to go to the U.S. for testing and treatment. And we need to catch up so that we have what we need, which is a Canadian approach that helps people with Lyme and prevents people from getting it just through better awareness.
So what would the bill actually do? I mean, you're expecting it to pass, as you say, because it is all party support?
Well, at this
Absolutely.
point, I sure hope so. We got through second reading unanimously. We're now before committee. Right now it's a race against time to get it through as quickly as possible, because what the bill will do, and I actually have to say that we wouldn't be anywhere, I don't think, without the support of the Minister of Health, Ron Ambrose. She's been very supportive. The bill would require the Minister of Health to hold a conference with the provincial and territorial ministers of health and the medical establishment, the medical community, and the patients' groups, so that their voices are heard as we develop an approach that deals with the three different levels, as I see it. The prevention, to let people know it's out there, to know how to avoid it, proper diagnosis, and the best possible treatment, and share that information across Canada.
You know, I know about ticks. Like everybody else, I know about Lyme disease. I'm not sure I knew, A, that the consequences would be so severe, that the disease itself was so severe, but I sure didn't know that it was this hard to diagnose and to treat. How frustrating is it for you, Nicole, that in this day and age, you know, the diagnosis is hard, and that it's taken this long for you to start to feel, you know, like you're getting any sort of treatment at all?
To be honest, it's more disappointing
Yeah.
than frustrating. I've been through the frustration and all the stages of grief, and when you find out you have a chronic illness, but I was mostly disappointed because I trusted those doctors to help me. I trusted them entirely to figure out what was wrong with me.
Yeah.
I was 15, and I thought that they would fix me rather quickly. It's unconscionable that this is such a problem, especially when we've seen a similar situation with the AIDS epidemic in the 80s and 90s. It feels like this is a repeat of that same denial, that same feeling that a patient
Lack of
has
understanding,
when they go into their doctor's office, that lack of understanding and compassion.
Well, especially in this case, because with Lyme disease, and this is the good news out of it, when caught quickly, when treated quickly, the recovery is 100%. You're back to full health. So that's what people shouldn't, you know, I don't want people being afraid to go out in nature. I'm the leader of the Green Party. I want people to enjoy being out in nature.
Yeah.
But you have to have a level of awareness. And with this bill, and again, I'm grateful to all the parties in the House of Commons, this is a nonpartisan issue. We get this bill passed, we can put in place the kinds of programs that allow people to be better aware, take the precautionary steps to avoid getting the tick bite, but if they get it, to go to a doctor who knows what to look for, who has some guidelines and some help that says, look, it presents as funny symptoms. Sometimes it's misdiagnosed, sometimes it's multiple sclerosis, it's misdiagnosed as chronic fatigue syndrome, and we need to, when it's misdiagnosed, not only do you potentially prescribe drugs that weren't at all appropriate for what the patient needs, you miss that window of opportunity to quickly recover the patient to complete health.
What would you tell people, Nicole, about what they should know about it that they didn't know, or what should happen if they? Sometimes the problem is that you don't know that you've been bitten, right?
That's a huge problem. A tick is about the size of a poppy seed, so if it's on your skin, you're not going to notice that it's there. Usually, they recommend people wear light-colored clothing when they go outdoors in order to spot ticks more easily. Tuck your pants into your socks for a really attractive look. Wear leggings, it looks better. And wear some sort of bug repellent. Avoid tall grass. Avoid stumps. Stay in the middle of the path. There's a lot of things you can do in that area, but what are you going to do? Not go outside? The solution here is that you get bitten, you get treated promptly. I mean, it should never become a chronic infection. It should never be a big deal. You get bit by a mosquito, you're not going to freak out. It happens. It's how we address it that's where the huge problem is.
And do you think that this is going to make a difference?
Absolutely.
You do, yeah.
Absolutely. I wish it had been there when I first got sick.
I mean, this is a brave girl. And part of when I brought in the bill, I was saying, you know, I have a lot of Lyme disease patients in my riding and across Canada who are friends. But Nicole was there for first reading almost 2 years ago. She was in the gallery. She's so brave. But this was a kid at 15 years old who was going to school and happy and healthy, and she's a brilliant young woman, but she's in a wheelchair, and that shouldn't have happened.
Do you feel like, you know, obviously it's changed your life in all these physical ways, but you've also become, I guess now, an advocate for this?
Absolutely. There's quite a transformative power in wellness. Really, you learn so much about not only yourself but about your community, about what it takes to get better. I've been handed this opportunity in disguise. I've always wanted to change the world, but I had no idea that I would have to be changed first. And so it goes. And I'm very glad that I can help be a part of that change.
Well, I'm glad that I got the chance to meet you.
It's so wonderful to be here.
Thanks for coming in, and thanks to you, Elizabeth May. Appreciate
Well,
it.
thanks for all the people across Canada who are supporting the bill.
Absolutely.
Thank you both. Nice to meet you, and nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.